A single sentence can change a career. Tonight, a throwaway line from a young quarterback lit a fuse that blew up across sports media. And it all started with a simple, pointed phrase. There are entertainers and there are competitors. Spoken after a preseason snap, it was meant to be clever. Instead, it landed like a challenge and detonated into one of the nastiest media takedowns you'll see this offseason. Dillon Gabriel thought he was drawing a line between showmanship and seriousness. What he didn't realize was that he'd picked the wrong target. Shedeur Sanders isn't just another rookie with a nice arm. He's the son of a cultural lightning rod, a player who carries media attention every time he steps onto a field. That attention makes him more than a stat line. It makes him a story. So when Gabriel's words arrived on live microphones, they didn't come across as a measured critique of the media. They read like shade thrown at a kid already under a 1,000-watt spotlight. Enter Stephen A. Smith, whose histrionics are less commentary and more full-contact performance art. He smelled blood and he pounced. What followed wasn't a debate. It was demolition. Stephen A. didn't simply argue. He dismantled Gabriel's credibility piece by piece, calling out the timing, the tone, and the obvious mismatch in stature. On national television, in front of millions, the rookie's jab dissolved into an epic roast that reshaped the narrative in minutes. Clips exploded online, and what might have been a forgettable presser became a defining career moment. But this wasn't just about one loud voice yelling into the void. Social platforms amplified every syllable. Hashtags trended. Meme makers edited the soundbite over highlight reels. Podcasts spun reaction shows. Fans split into two camps. Those who felt vindicated, who'd long suspected the Browns' quarterback situation was chaotic, and those who felt betrayed, watching their organization's reputation teeter under public pressure. The noise didn't wait for facts. Perception surged ahead of verification, and the internet handed down an immediate, unforgiving verdict. Yet it's important to slow down for a second. Viral fury is contagious, but it isn't always conclusive. Context matters. A mic catches one moment, not a season's worth of nuance. The way Stephen A. framed things amplified the emotional truth that Shedeur is a magnet for attention, but it also risks flattening a complicated situation into a soundbite. That's the dangerous part. One clip changing the way millions judge a player, a coach, or an organization before the full story is told. So what happened in the moments after the roast? How did the Browns, the locker room, and the league respond when national outrage collided with preseason realities? And what does this mean for careers built on moments rather than months? What followed next would reshape narratives and force everyone to pick a side. Sometimes careers don't stumble on the field. They trip in front of a microphone. For Dillon Gabriel, that's exactly what happened after a preseason game when he dropped one of the most talked about lines of the week. There are entertainers and there are competitors, and my job is to compete. On paper, it sounded like a confident rookie drawing boundaries. But in the context of the Browns' quarterback drama, the words landed like a side-eyed jab at Shedeur Sanders, the one player the football world has been glued to all summer. Why? Because Shedeur isn't just seen as a quarterback. He's seen as a phenomenon. He carries his father's name, he carries the burden of turning around a program, and he carries a spotlight that follows him into every press conference and practice rep. When Gabriel chose to separate entertainers from competitors, fans and media didn't hear a rookie speaking abstractly about football culture. They heard a direct shot aimed at the guy who embodies both competition and entertainment, Sanders himself. The irony is that Gabriel tried to walk it back almost immediately. Later in the press conference, he clarified that he meant the media were the entertainers, and that his comment wasn't meant to downplay Sanders at all. But by then, it was too late. Once a comment catches fire online, explanations don't matter. The clip had already gone viral. stripped of context and polished into a narrative the internet wanted to hear. Gabriel dismissing the hottest young QB in the conversation. And if we're being honest, the timing couldn't have been worse. Gabriel had just thrown a pick six and committed a costly fumble earlier in the same game. Those mistakes made his words sound less like confidence and more like deflection. It's one thing to say you're about competition when you've just balled out. It's another thing entirely when your stat line tells a different story. Fans smelled insecurity, and commentators smelled easy material. That's the dangerous part of modern sports culture. You don't just compete on the field anymore. You compete in the arena of perception. Every quote, every slip, every headline is instantly dissected by millions of eyes, then remixed into memes, clips, and sound bites. Gabriel probably thought his words would fade in the noise of a long preseason. Instead, they turned into the spark that set social media ablaze and opened the door for one of the most brutal media arts, takedowns of the year. Because once those words left his mouth, they weren't just his anymore. They belonged to the internet. And that was all Stephen A. Smith needed. When Stephen A. Smith gets his hands on a hot mic and a controversial quote, you know what's coming. A verbal demolition. Dillon Gabriel's entertainers versus competitors line was barely 24 hours old before Stephen A. turned it into national theater. And make no mistake, this wasn't just commentary. This was a takedown so surgical and so loud that it transformed a preseason soundbite into a cultural talking point. On First Take, Stephen A. didn't waste time with pleasantries. He called the comment stupid and dumb, adding emphasis with that trademark rhythm that makes his words sound like both a lecture and a beatdown. He pointed out that in every walk of life, not just football, you need to choose your words carefully, especially when the spotlight is already aimed at someone bigger than you. Gabriel, a brand new face in the NFL, hadn't earned the right to throw shade at Shedeur Sanders, whether intentional or not. And Smith made sure the whole country knew it. What made the roast sting wasn't just the vocabulary, it was the framing. Stephen A. painted Gabriel as a player who talks louder than his resume. He contrasted Gabriel's decent but forgettable career against Sanders' star power. Shifting the conversation from stats to stature, he said out loud what fans were already thinking. Shedeur is box office, while Gabriel is, at best, serviceable. That contrast turned the clip into more than an argument about football. It became a referendum on relevance. The delivery was classic Stephen A. Animated gestures, a rising voice, and metaphors sharp, enough to trend on their own. He compared Gabriel's decision to walking into the lion's den in a steak suit and described the roast itself as a demolition show. It wasn't debate, it was spectacle. And that's exactly why it caught fire. Stephen A. didn't just defend Shedeur Sanders. He transformed the moment into a cultural beatdown that left Gabriel's credibility in pieces. The reaction was immediate. Clips of Stephen A.'s monologue were clipped and shared across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram within minutes. Fans replayed the roast like it was a highlight reel in its own right. For a rookie still trying to find footing, this wasn't just embarrassing. It was career-defining. Suddenly, Gabriel's name wasn't being discussed in the context of preseason performance. It was being discussed as the guy Stephen A. ripped apart for daring to brush against Sanders' aura. That's the power of Stephen A. He doesn't just win arguments, he reshapes narratives. One sharp rant, and Gabriel's comment went from questionable to catastrophic. And as Stephen A.'s words echoed across the internet, the story stopped being about what Gabriel said. It became about how completely he got cooked. And that's when social media did the rest. If Stephen A.'s roast was the spark, social media was the wildfire. Within minutes of the segment airing, clips of his takedown were everywhere, chopped into 30-second TikToks, captioned with flames and clown emojis on Twitter, remixed over highlight reels on Instagram. What began as a rookie's post-game comment turned into the single most replayed moment of the Browns' preseason. Hashtags erupted almost instantly. Hashtag #FreeShedeur started trending as fans rallied behind Sanders, sharing his college highlights and pointing out how often he's carried pressure without cracking. At the same time, hashtag Dillon Down Bad began circulating, turning Gabriel into a meme overnight. Side-by-side edits compared his pick six with Stephen A's roast, as if one humiliation on the field wasn't enough. For Gabriel, the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict, and it wasn't pretty. Reddit piled on too, with entire threads breaking down every word of Gabriel's quote. Some fans argued he was clearly talking about the media, not Sanders. Others shot back that perception is reality, and once you mention competitors and entertainers in the same breath while Shedeur's name is hot, you've essentially written your own headline. Even those trying to defend Gabriel admitted it was a rookie mistake, the kind of slip you can't afford in a league where narratives move faster than defenses. TikTok creators had a field day. Some layered Stephen A's rant over slow-motion clips of Gabriel throwing his interception. Others stitched Gabriel's press conference soundbite with reactions of fans groaning or laughing hysterically. Each edit racked up hundreds of thousands of views, amplifying the humiliation far beyond sports circles. Soon, even casual fans who couldn't name the Browns' offensive coordinator knew Gabriel's name, for all the wrong reasons. And the ripple effect didn't stop with fans. Analysts on podcasts, YouTube channels, and Twitter Spaces seized on the story, using it to launch bigger conversations about rookie etiquette, locker room politics, and the power of media personalities to make or break reputations. Some even suggested Gabriel's slip could affect his standing in the locker room, since players don't want to deal with extra media drama when the season hasn't even started. That's the danger of the modern spotlight. One slip of the tongue can snowball into a cultural drama, moment that defines you. Gabriel's competitor line might have been a small spark in isolation, but once the internet got hold of Stephen A's roast, it became a full-on inferno. And that's when the story stopped being just about social media chatter. Suddenly, the Browns organization and even the league itself couldn't ignore the noise. Once the internet had its say, attention quickly shifted to Cleveland itself. Fans weren't just laughing at memes anymore. They wanted answers. Could the Browns organization back Gabriel after such a public disaster? And what did this mean for Shedeur Sanders, the rookie now at the center of the storm? Head coach Kevin Stefanski faced the heat first. When asked about Gabriel's comments, he tried to downplay the drama, suggesting it was all a misunderstanding. He pointed to mix-ups in routes and insisted the focus should stay on football, not sound bites. But the damage was already done. Fans didn't hear reassurance. They heard deflection. To many, it sounded like a coach trying to calm waters that were already spilling into a tidal wave. Meanwhile, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam reportedly stepped in behind the scenes, reassuring Sanders and his family that the organization was committed to his development. But those words weren't enough to silence speculation. Social media buzzed with theories that Cleveland had a bigger problem brewing. Whispers of favoritism, hidden agendas, even allegations that Sanders' opportunities were being deliberately managed. Some claimed there was leaked audio backing that idea, though no verified outlet confirmed it. Still, in the viral age, perception often overshadows fact, and the rumors spread faster than the official responses. The league itself couldn't completely avoid the noise either. Normally, the NFL doesn't wade into preseason chatter, but with Stephen A's rant dominating headlines, league sources were reportedly monitoring the situation. Some fan-driven narratives even claimed Roger Goodell was considering disciplinary action against Stefanski for how the quarterback competition was being handled. A rumor that went viral despite zero confirmation from credible outlets. It's the kind of speculative storm that thrives online. The more dramatic the theory, the faster it circulates. Inside Cleveland's locker room, the tension was palpable. Players suddenly had to answer media questions about Gabriel's words, not about preseason progress. Veterans shook their heads at the distraction. Younger players privately admitted the timing felt like a self-inflicted wound, as if the team's QB battle wasn't already complicated enough. And through it all, Shedeur Sanders stayed quiet, letting the circus play out around him. His silence only fueled the contrast. Gabriel talking himself into a mess, Sanders embodying calm focus. That silence spoke volumes. By saying nothing, Sanders looked poised. By saying too much, Gabriel looked reckless. In a league obsessed with optics, that difference matters as much as what happens on the field. The Browns tried to keep the spotlight on football, but the truth was, the story had already outgrown their control. And as legal questions and internal whispers gained traction, the next chapter was inevitable: fallout. When drama reaches the level Cleveland suddenly found itself in, the next question is almost always the same. What are the legal stakes? And make no mistake, this saga had plenty of them. On one side was Kevin Stefanski. If rumors of leaked audio and hidden agendas carried anything truth, his future wasn't just in jeopardy on the sidelines. It was on shaky legal ground too. Speculation swirled that the league could discipline him, with some corners of the internet even claiming Roger Goodell had already considered a lifetime ban. That specific claim hasn't been confirmed by any credible outlet, but the fact that fans and pundits debated it at all shows how far this story spiraled. Stefanski's camp could easily argue wrongful termination or breach of contract if drastic action were taken. With millions of guaranteed dollars reportedly tied to his deal, you can bet lawyers would be lining up for battle. Then came the question of the recording itself. Ohio was a one-party consent state, meaning if even one person in the meeting approved the recording, it could technically be legal. But NFL facilities have their own strict policies. Anyone caught secretly recording could face immediate termination, lawsuits, or worse. That meant if a staffer, player, or assistant leaked the audio, they'd risk their career even while being celebrated online as a whistleblower. The legal paradox was clear. A hero to fans might be a liability to the team. And don't forget Shedeur Sanders. If the perception or reality was that his career had been deliberately sabotaged, his family could pursue claims too. Allegations of a hostile work environment or intentional interference with his development could be enough to spark lawsuits aimed at both the Browns and the league. In a world where quarterback careers are worth tens of millions, even the hint of deliberate suppression carries massive financial weight. The NFL Players Association also loomed large in the background. Agents were already rumbling about new contract clauses to protect their clients, guarantees of fair developmental, reps arbitration rights for depth chart disputes, maybe even independent oversight for player usage. If this incident proved anything, it's that players and their reps won't sit quietly if they believe politics are being placed above performance. So while fans were busy with memes and hot takes, the lawyers were sharpening their pens. What began as a 47-second clip and a few poorly chosen words had ballooned into potential lawsuits, collective bargaining issues, and years of courtroom drama. And all of that was just the business side. Inside the locker room, the fallout wasn't measured in legal briefs. It was measured in trust. The courtroom drama may be years away, but inside the Browns locker room, the fallout was immediate. When players walked into practice after the controversy, they weren't just thinking about playbooks or game plans. They were thinking about trust. For veterans, the mess felt like deja vu. Many had been through scandals before, but rarely one that cut this deep. Privately, some admitted they always suspected the quarterback competition wasn't being handled fairly. Now, with rumors swirling and leaks flying, those suspicions felt validated. One anonymous lineman even told a local reporter, "We all knew something was off. That clip just confirmed it." Whether or not the audio was real, The belief among players was enough to fracture confidence in the coaching staff. Younger players, on the other hand, saw the controversy as a warning. If a high-profile rookie like Shedeur Sanders could be allegedly sidelined for politics, what chance did they have? For rookies fighting to make rosters, the message was chilling. Talent alone might not be enough. Some even wondered aloud if this could happen elsewhere in the league. And then there was Sanders himself. His silence during the firestorm spoke louder than any statement. No tweets, no interviews, no fiery clapbacks. Just silence. Teammates noticed. For some, it was a sign of maturity beyond his years. For others, it was a reminder that Sanders was carrying the weight of a scandal he didn't ask for. Sources close to him suggested he was hurt, not celebrating. He wanted to earn his spot through competition, not through controversy. But like it or not, his teammates now viewed him differently, not just as a rookie, but as a symbol of resilience in the middle of chaos. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel's situation was the opposite. Instead of silence, he tried clarifying his comment, saying he meant the media when he spoke about entertainers versus competitors. But the locker room had already made up its mind. Even if he didn't mean Sanders, the damage was done. Teammates saw the distraction, the headlines, the memes, and they knew who caused them. Fair or not, Gabriel's reputation inside the building took a hit that may take an entire season to repair. The Browns' interim leadership, defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, stepping in after Stefanski's exit, tried to steady the ship. His message was simple. Sanders is our starter. Gabriel is our backup. Competition is over. Let's play football. For a locker room drowning in speculation, that clarity was refreshing. Veterans respected it. Young guys rallied around it. For the first time in weeks, the team felt like it had direction. Still, scars remained. Trust once broken doesn't heal overnight. The Browns could patch over the cracks with strong leadership and wins on the field. But deep down, everyone knew this controversy had changed the locker room forever. And as unity started to rebuild, the focus shifted to the next chapter. Not just football, but the fan base watching every move with fire in their eyes. If the locker room was rattled, the fan base was absolutely split in two. Browns Nation has always been passionate, but this scandal poured gasoline on years of frustration and lit the match. On one side were the Shedeur supporters, and they came out swinging. To them, the leaked clip, whether real or exaggerated, was vindication. For weeks, they'd been calling foul on practice reps, preseason starts, and depth chart decisions. Now, with the audio making the rounds online, those doubts turned into outrage. Free Shedeur wasn't just a hashtag, it became a rallying cry. Fans flooded comment sections, demanding accountability, some even calling for a complete front office overhaul. In their eyes, Sanders wasn't just the future quarterback. He was the victim of a system that tried to hold him back. On the other side were the loyalists, the fans who felt blindsided and betrayed. They weren't just angry at Stefanski, they were devastated. To them, this wasn't just about a quarterback controversy. It was about the Browns' identity. They'd believed their team was finally on the right path, only to learn whispers of sabotage and dysfunction had poisoned the foundation. Local sports radio hosts echoed that devastation. One longtime podcaster summed it up bluntly. "We didn't just lose a coach, we lost trust in the organization." National media wasted no time turning the firestorm into wall-to-wall coverage. ESPN cut into regular programming with breaking news banners. Stephen A. Smith's original rant became a viral highlight on its own, replayed on every sports network and reshared across millions of feeds. Shannon Sharpe piled on during his podcast, calling Gabriel's jab and the Browns' day. Handling of Sanders, a recipe for disaster. The media blitz transformed the scandal from a Cleveland problem into a league-wide cautionary tale. Meanwhile, memes spread like wildfire. Gabriel's face was plastered onto everything from sinking ships to expired fast food logos. Sanders, by contrast, was photoshopped into superhero edits, his calm silence portrayed as the ultimate clapback. The internet had already chosen its hero and its villain, and it wasn't subtle. Sponsors, too, were reportedly uneasy. Whispers circulated that some brands tied to the Browns were quietly asking questions about the team's stability. The NFL, always sensitive to its image, had to weigh whether this was just a temporary controversy or a full-blown reputation crisis. But beyond all the noise, what really stung for the fans was this. Their team wasn't making headlines for winning games, but for chaos. For an organization desperate to prove it could compete at the highest level, being the epicenter of the league's messiest scandal felt like another cruel twist in the Browns' cursed history. And as fans debated and screamed online, one truth became clear. This wasn't just a preseason storyline anymore. It was a cultural moment shaping how Cleveland and Shedeur Sanders would be seen for years to come. Scandals come and go in the NFL, but this one hit differently. It wasn't just about a rookie quarterback or a coach making bad decisions. It was about the league's credibility. When fans saw headlines about leaked audio, favoritism, and a possible cover-up, they weren't just questioning the Browns. They were questioning whether the NFL itself had allowed a toxic culture to flourish. For decades, the league's motto has been, "Protect the Shield." That phrase is supposed to mean integrity, fairness, and competitive balance. But the Sanders controversy forced fans to ask, does the league protect its players or just its image? When whispers emerged that Sanders might have been deliberately suppressed, it struck a nerve. How many other players, fans wondered, had seen their careers quietly sabotaged for politics, money, or favoritism, just without the benefit of a viral recording? The cultural impact spread far beyond Cleveland. On social media, younger fans framed the scandal as part of a generational shift. To them, Shedeur represented not just a quarterback, but a symbol of change, a confident, outspoken player refusing to be buried by old guard politics. Older fans, meanwhile, worried about precedent. If a coach could face career-ending consequences for mishandling reps, where was the line between accountability and overreach? The debate wasn't just about Sanders or Gabriel anymore. It was about the future of coaching authority in professional sports. Player agents took note too. Multiple reports suggested they were already pushing for new protections in future contracts. Clauses guaranteeing developmental opportunities, arbitration for disputes over playing time, even independent oversight of depth chart decisions. The NFL Players Association hinted at collective bargaining talks that could redefine the player-coach dynamic entirely. What started as a preseason slip of the tongue was suddenly influencing labor negotiations and shaping the future of the game. And then there's the cultural crossover. Shedeur Sanders isn't just another rookie. He's the son of Deion "Primetime" Sanders, a man whose presence already commands national attention. That family connection amplified everything. Sports fans saw Shedeur as the heir to a football empire. Non-sports fans, pulled in by the viral clips, saw the story as another chapter in America's broader conversation about power, fairness, and respect. In many ways, the scandal became less about who starts at quarterback for the Browns and more about what the NFL represents in 2025. Is it a league where talent decides destiny? Or is it a league where politics still hold the power? One thing is clear. The fallout stretched far beyond preseason box scores. It touched the league's reputation, reshaped conversations about fairness, and made Shedeur Sanders not just a player to watch, but a cultural figurehead. And with all eyes on him heading into the season, the final chapter still had to be written. Not in a courtroom or a press conference, but on the field. As the dust settles, one truth stands tall. This scandal didn't end with a press conference or a trending hashtag. It set the stage for one of the most scrutinized seasons in recent NFL memory. For Shedeur Sanders, the spotlight has never been brighter. Every snap, every throw, every sideline glance is magnified under a microscope. Analysts aren't just measuring his stats. They're measuring whether he can justify the chaos that surrounded him. If he thrives, the narrative shifts. The young quarterback who overcame sabotage and carried Cleveland into a new era. If he falters, critics will say the controversy was overblown, that maybe the coaches weren't wrong to hesitate. Either way, Sanders can't escape the weight of expectation. His name is now tied to something bigger than football. It's tied to the integrity of the league itself. For Dillon Gabriel, the season outlook is just as pivotal, but in the opposite direction. He walks into every practice and game with a reputation scarred by one poorly timed comment. Fair or not, teammates, fans, and media alike see him as the player who poked the bear and got scorched. To rebuild his credibility, Gabriel will need more than solid play. He'll need humility, patience, and maybe even a breakout moment that shifts attention back to his game instead of his mouth. Without it, his career risks being remembered not for touchdowns, but for a viral takedown that became bigger than his accomplishments. The Browns, as an organization, face the steepest climb. Fans have long memories, and scandals like this don't fade quickly. Winning is the only real antidote. If Cleveland can rally around Sanders, put points on the board, and sneak into playoff contention, the scandal may start to feel like the turning point that birthed the new era. But if the team stumbles, the whispers of dysfunction will echo louder than ever, cementing the Browns as not just cursed, but catastrophically mismanaged. Zooming out, the league itself has just as much on the line. The NFL's response, from Goodell's public posture to the whispers of future contract reforms, will be watched closely. Players and fans alike want to see if protecting the shield truly means protecting fairness or just protecting headlines. If Sanders succeeds, the league can point to accountability and justice. If he fails, critics will argue the NFL papered over systemic problems without solving them. So as the regular season looms, the Browns aren't just preparing for opponents like the Bengals or Ravens. They're preparing for the court of public opinion, the relentless scrutiny of fans, and the ever-hungry spotlight of national media. One thing's for sure, this isn't just about football anymore. It's about legacy, culture, and whether Shedeur Sanders can turn chaos into triumph. And starting week 1, the whole world will be watching to see if the rookie can silence the noise, the only way that truly matters, by winning.